What effect did the depression have on your marriage?
Well, it gave everybody a wonderful new label. It's Diana's unstable, and Diana's mentally imbalanced. And unfortunately, that seems to have stuck on and off over the years.
Two princesses, one cold relationship, and now a letter that changes the story we thought we knew. After 26 years sealed in silence, Princess Diana's secret message to Princess Anne has finally come to light. But what did Diana know? And why did she write to the one woman who always kept her at a distance? Let's rewind the clock to the moment this long-hidden letter first resurfaced and uncover what Diana was really trying to say.
3 people died that night. Princess Diana, Dodi Al Fayed, and a man called Henri Paul, who was the driver. Dodi Al Fayed hit the back of Henri Paul's seat with a weight of about 4 elephants. And so he hit the back of the seat and completely crushed Henri Paul against the steering wheel. Trevor Rees-Jones had his seatbelt on, and so when Diana, who wasn't wearing a seatbelt, hit him, she was partially protected by him. When we look at the injuries that Diana had, they were very minor injuries in her left lung. The injury that she had was one of these hidden injuries. She was okay, she was chatting. I think she had a broken arm. It was only on the journey to hospital that her condition tipped from being increasingly unstable to serious, and she had a cardiac arrest. But if only she'd worn a seatbelt, she would, I'm sure, still be alive today.
In early 2024, British auctioneer James Parker was going through a dusty storage box in Essex, preparing for a charity estate sale. The box contained what looked like a collection of old royal memorabilia, mostly typical thank you notes from Princess Diana. But one envelope immediately stood out. Unlike the others, this envelope was sealed, completely untouched, and marked with Diana's personal wax crest. It hadn't been opened, tampered with, or even cataloged properly. James said it felt out of place, not like the usual formal letters Diana often sent to donors or charities. The envelope had clearly been passed around through private hands since 1997, but no one had dared to open it. Its condition suggested that whoever held onto it over the years knew it carried something personal and possibly powerful. When Parker submitted the contents for inspection, historians and handwriting experts quickly confirmed what many suspected. The letter was real. The ink, the handwriting, the wax seal all matched other verified samples of Diana's writing from the same period. Even the style of the paper matched the stationery Diana used at Kensington Palace. And while many letters from Diana have been shared publicly, especially ones related to her humanitarian work, this one had a different feel from the start. This wasn't a letter meant for public eyes. This was private, personal, intentional. But this wasn't just another thank you note or charity message. What was inside would stun even the most seasoned royal experts. The letter was dated early summer 1997, just weeks before Diana's life was cut short in a Paris tunnel. The tone wasn't dramatic or bitter. It was calm and deeply personal. Diana opened by expressing a quiet appreciation to Anne for what she called a moment of kindness. She didn't explain the event in detail, but from her words, it was clear that Anne had done or said something that made Diana feel seen in a palace where she often felt ignored. She went on to speak about the royal family in a way that showed both concern and hope. She acknowledged the cracks in the institution, the struggle to evolve, the pressure from the media, and how she feared that these things would only get worse. But most striking was her mention of William and Harry. Diana wrote that her sons were her biggest concern. She feared what the public eye might do to them, how the palace might shape them, and what would happen if she could no longer be there to guide them. It was here that she made an unexpected plea. She asked Anne, of all people, to look out for them. She didn't ask for affection or emotional support. Diana knew Anne wasn't that type. What she asked for was stability. She wanted Anne to help protect her boys from being consumed by the very system that hurt her. It wasn't a long letter, but every line carried weight. Diana wasn't just reaching out, she was reaching across a long-standing divide. Why would Diana reach out to Anne of all people, especially when they had barely shared more than polite smiles?
I think my mother did exactly the right thing. I think it's absolutely extraordinary that any right-minded thinking parent should believe that it would have been an alternative to bring those children down here to London in all that hoo-ha. I just don't know how you could think that that would have been a better thing to do.
Diana and Anne never pretended to be close. From the start, they were two very different people brought together by the crown. Anne, the Queen's only daughter, was known for her loyalty to tradition, her blunt manner, and her firm boundary with the press. She believed in duty, not drama. Diana, on the other hand, was a media icon. She wore her heart on her sleeve, connected with the public, and wasn't afraid to speak openly about her struggles. To Anne, this wasn't strength, it was weakness. Their differences weren't just personal. They played out at palace events, in interviews, and even behind closed doors. One early sign of tension came during Prince William's christening. Diana reportedly wanted Anne to be William's godmother, hoping it would help bridge the gap between them. But Anne declined. She had another engagement and didn't seem interested in rearranging her plans. The snub left Diana hurt and only deepened the quiet wall between them. They rarely spoke beyond what was necessary. Diana was once quoted saying Anne never liked me and barely acknowledged me. Anne, meanwhile, often looked annoyed when asked about Diana during public engagements. But under the cold stares and formal events, Diana was watching and learning. Despite their differences, her letter didn't carry bitterness. It actually held respect. Diana saw something in Anne that most people overlooked. Anne never played games with the press. She didn't chase attention. She stayed loyal to the monarchy and did her work quietly, even when the cameras weren't rolling. To Diana, that was strength, the kind she hoped someone around her sons would have when she no longer could. In the letter, Diana described Anne as a constant in a world that felt unstable. She called her steady and even used the word admirable, which surprised experts who'd followed their cold relationship for years. But it made sense. Diana knew she wasn't going to win every fight with the palace. She couldn't protect her boys from everything, but maybe Anne could help where she couldn't, by simply being consistent. Diana didn't ask Anne to be emotional or loving. That wasn't her way. What she asked for was practical, just to watch William and Harry and make sure they weren't lost to the system. She wrote, "You don't have to agree with me, just promise to see them as they are, not as what the palace expects them to be." It wasn't just a plea for help, it was a request for understanding. Diana wasn't trying to change Anne, she trusted Anne to be exactly who she was and hoped that would be enough. And Diana wasn't just worried about her boys, she was worried about herself and the powerful forces closing in. In the months leading up to her death, Diana was writing constantly. Letters, journal entries, notes to friends and staff. It was as if she knew something was coming. Her words were careful and, at times, fearful. She told her butler, Paul Burrell, that she felt hunted, that someone was trying to ruin her public image, to paint her as unstable or paranoid. She even believed her phone was tapped. Her protection officer, Ken Warf, also confirmed Diana had become more alert. She watched who followed her, questioned strangers who lingered near her car, and kept changing her schedule last minute, always thinking someone was tracking her. Her activism around landmine awareness didn't help. She had stepped into political territory, something royals were expected to avoid, but Diana was passionate. She met with victims, walked through cleared minefields, and called out world governments, something that made powerful people uncomfortable. Some letters revealed she feared those connections had made her a target. One note she sent to her solicitor described feeling boxed in and said, "There are powers that don't want me here," and still she kept writing, as if getting it all down on paper would help protect her legacy, or at least make sure someone, someday, would understand. But unlike the others, this letter to Anne carried something deeper, a vision for the future, and a mother's dying hope. More than 2 decades later, it's clear that Diana saw things others didn't. She wrote about the media's growing power, predicting it would overtake everything, even the monarchy's control over its own image. She worried about a world where headlines matter more than facts, and that fear rings louder today than ever before. She also saw the cracks in the royal family, the pressure to conform, the cost of living 2 lives, one for the crown and one for the self. Now William walks that tightrope, balancing royal duty while trying to raise his family with some sense of normalcy. Meanwhile, Harry stepped away completely, choosing freedom over tradition, even if it meant leaving behind the only life he'd ever known. Diana's line, "Time will prove me right," wasn't dramatic. It was honest. She saw what the system could do to people, and she feared it would swallow her children too. And in many ways, her vision came true. Anne never commented on the letter publicly, but she did appear more connected to William and Harry in the years that followed. She never played the motherly role Diana asked for, but she kept a quiet watch, just as Diana had hoped.
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it's a bit crowded.
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
Since the letter surfaced, the palace hasn't said a word, and that silence says a lot. Usually, the royal family responds to false rumors quickly, especially when something threatens their public image. But with this letter, nothing. Not even a standard no comment. What we do know is that the letter is now in the hands of the British Library, being examined by a team of experts. Handwriting, ink aging, paper sourcing, all being verified. Sources close to the library confirmed it will be treated as part of a larger private collection, which also includes Diana's other personal writings, many of which still haven't seen the light of day. That's what's raising new questions. If this letter exists, written directly to Princess Anne, what else is out there? What other warnings, messages, or even final wishes might still be tucked away, sealed in storage, or kept quiet to protect reputations? Royal insiders are silent, and longtime staffers refuse to comment. One former aide simply said, "This isn't the only letter that mattered, it's just the first one you've seen." That comment alone has fueled more speculation that Diana may have written to others, possibly even senior royals, about her fears, her sons, or her future plans. But so far, none of that has been officially confirmed or denied. This kind of silence isn't just about avoiding headlines, it allows the institution to wait and watch without feeding the story further. But with public interest growing, that silence may not hold forever. Diana may be gone, but her words and her warnings are still speaking volumes, especially to the one person she once trusted in silence. Princess Diana's letter to Anne wasn't about drama. It wasn't even about anger. It was about protection. It was about hope. It was about a mother trying to reach across a wall that duty had built between her and another woman in the same palace. 2 women who rarely saw eye to eye, but in that one letter, something changed. Diana saw Anne for what she was, a loyal constant in a world that kept shifting. She didn't ask for affection, she asked for honesty. She asked for trust, and maybe, deep down, she asked to be heard one final time. For the rest of us, this letter is a reminder. Royals may wear crowns and wave from balconies, but behind the curtains, they're still parents. They worry, they fear for their children, and they know that sometimes words left behind may be the only way their truth survives. What do you guys think Diana saw coming, and do you believe Anne fulfilled her promise? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more untold royal truths.